Okay, let's start back up again. Let's commit these changes. Handle gender in the main method. Okay, so let's step away from TDD for a little bit, and let's talk about continuous integration. Does anybody know what continuous integration is? CI, I see a couple of nods. What's your definition of continuous integration? Yes, currently merging and testing and building. So in this day and age, we put a lot of value on rapid feedback. I work in little chunks, and I learn something about those chunks. And when we develop unit tests, right, they provide feedback, and pretty rapidly too, right? So you make a little code change, you run a test, you get one test passing, then you run all of your tests, and you see if you broke anything, right? This is really good. And by enabling this rapid learning, it actually saves you a lot of time because, as I think we've probably all experienced, when you find a bug in something that you wrote a week ago or a month ago, you have to like get your entire head back and like, what was I thinking back then? You know, I was so much younger and it was a simpler time, and and so then if you can get that feedback quickly, then you end up going faster because you're not having to go back and rehash a whole bunch of stuff. So what continuous integration is it says, okay, listen, every time usually the way it works is every time I commit some code, go rebuild my project, tell me whether or not I've broken anything. There is a company called Travis CI that, let's see here, sorry, where is it? We are in week 2, that offers continuous integration. I'll just go to about them and stuff. Oops, where does documentation? Well, anyway. So the whole idea here is that I have a bunch of repositories here in GitHub, and I created an account with Travis CI. And so what I'm able to do is for each one of my repositories, every time I make a check, every time I check in some code to it, Travis CI will get the latest changes, rebuild everything from scratch, which includes running the tests and everything like that. And if anything fails, it tells me about it. And this is really powerful, right? So I thought what I'd do is I spend a little bit of time getting this working for my repository here. And just to let you know, before my summer 2019 repository is public. And Travis will give you for free continuous builds in a public repository. There is, Travis also has an educational program which purports to be free to students with a GitHub educational account. So if you have a GitHub educational account, it'll let you build private repositories there. I've never used it. I don't know if it works, how well it works, or if you need to sign your life away or anything. But if you'd like to do this for yourself for your own private repository, it appears to be available to you. So let's see here. Let's go find some documentation for Travis. Documentation. Getting started. So your common build command line. Oh, here we go. Programming languages. And Java. Projects using Maven. So basically what you tell Travis to do is, hey, configure an environment, and actually it's a Docker container in which your code will run. And you can tell it, hey, use this version of Java. You can tell it, hey, I'm running with a Maven, I'm running Maven to build my project. And you can also tell it what to put on the Maven command line. For the sake of efficiency, what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go find the Travis file that I use for my primary repository, and I'm just going to use that to start the new one. So let's see here. Here in my, actually I'm going to put it up here in my top level directory. Actually, it has to go in the top level directory. So there is, if you have kind of the contract with Travis is if you have a file named .travis.yml, then you can Then Travis will check out your repository and will read this configuration file and run it appropriately. Do I want install or do I want verify? I think I want verify. Oops. What? VI. What did I just do? Never mind. Try it again. Should use Emacs. Story of my life. Yes, Emacs. What? Emacs is great. Verify. Okay. So then git commit, add Travis configuration. Dash A, what do you need to do then? Oh, what didn't it like? Git status, git add Travis, commit. There we go. Git push. Now this is my summer 2019 repository. So now if I go over here and refresh this, go to the top, it's now got, ought to have, oh, this is getting started. Sorry, so many repositories that all look the same. Portland State Java, summer 2019. Yep, it's got the travis.yml. I'll probably just add it to the upstream repository so you can all get it easily. So now I have that in my repository, and now if I just go over to Travis, and I go back to the home, which it logs in. Oh, I got signed out. That's weird. Wonder how that happened. Yes, I love you, Travis. Oh, and I actually want to grant access to summer 2019. That's nice of it. I'm glad I remembered my password. That's good to know. Huh, I wonder why I kind of started over again. Okay, so repositories. I'm running as me, right? That's weird.
Oh, so we won't be able to, oh, okay. We will be able to do it if we tell them that we have an educational account. They'll do private repositories.
Yes, that's my understanding anyway. And I'll do these select repositories. We'll do this one. We'll do, well, I'll just start that. Huh. Huh. I don't know what happened to my Travis. That's really weird. Like, all of my old builds seem to have gone away. So Liz has hers running like 2 years ago. That's so weird. What the heck is this? Okay, someone must made a fork or something. Wait, is that a private repository? What is going on here? This is me. Huh. Would you please build? So build. Build history. I'm not new to Travis CI though. I wonder why. Hi Josh, that's nice of you. You're a robot. Well, I wonder if I need to do another push. I added a Travis.yml. This is it. Do I need to do another push? Let me quick implement some code, I guess.
What if we log in from a different
I could do that, but I don't think that's it. I'm a little confused. So we could go add another test and see if this then kicks off the change. The change to activate the Travis build. They're going to look bad. They're going to look bad, Travis. Huh. Okay. So this is not behaving the way I expected. And now, that's informing. There's GitHub's. Oh, I wonder if I need to. This is GitHub. Repository access. Okay, fine. All repositories. So what it's doing is it appears to be authenticating with GitHub, and I've got a ton of stuff going on here. And if I go back to my okay, well now here it is. Woofed. Lots of stuff going on there. So yeah, that was weird. I kind of lost all of my other Travis stuff. Well, whatever. Okay. So I made a change. So what I did is I made a change to my code base. I committed everything. I pushed stuff up to GitHub, and that activated the Travis build. So now what it's doing, we can follow it down here. It's going through. It's checked out all of my code, and now it's running a build. And so now it's going. Oh, great! And it just finished. And okay, it seems to be running it twice. Maybe there's something else that finished. Yay, and everything was successful. And now it's green, and I think I just got an email from, oops, the top. An email from Travis saying that I was successful. So this is cool. So now if we implement another test, so other gender, there's returns, and then we say other. Okay, it fails because it returned a 1. So now if we go back and we uncomment this, run it again. So I just did a little TDD cycle. I made everything green, no cause for refactoring. And now if I support the other gender on the command line, I then check in and change. Yes, commit and push. Oops. I committed up to GitHub slowly. And then very shortly, but I am impatient. If I reload, oops, it should kick off another build. There might be some latency. Maybe not. I don't know. You're making me look bad tonight. There we go. I just got taunted, apparently. Anyway, so then Travis goes out, polls GitHub, says, "Oh, look, GitHub's changed." Or actually, maybe GitHub might have a hook that then tells Travis, hey, go kick off another build. Then it goes, it configures its environment, it then will, and then it'll run the Maven build using OpenJDK 11. So this is cool, right? So now as I'm writing my code, Travis will automatically be there, sort of working in the background for me, and will let me know when anything fails. As a matter of fact, what I'll get is if something does fail, then I'll get an email. It'll send me an email saying, hey, whoa, your build that's always passed now is failing. It'll let me know then I need to go fix something. So that's super useful, and something I encourage you guys to do. Yeah?
I have a silly question, but where is it built?
Where is it built? The cloud. Right, yeah, so, I mean, what? No, it's free.
I wonder if it'd be like some sort of competition.
They'll find you. No, they're in Germany, so I don't know, but they'll send Gunta over to like rough you up or something like that. Right? Yeah. No, I mean, don't be mean to people that are giving you stuff for free. And hey, while you're probably not the first person to come up with that, and so like I know that. I mean, your build like times out after if it's taking more than it's something like I think it sort of depends like 45 minutes or something like that. It'll time out, and I'm sure they're over there looking at like all the dials because they're paying for all that energy use and all that AWS time or whatever they're using and stuff. And so then they'll find you and they'll disable your account. Right? Goes on your permanent record. There goes your bid for the Senate. Okay. Awesome. So that's continuous integration. So let me know how that educational works for you, and if it's something that.
I can't find an option to like link it for like getting access to it. It's only looking at my public repository.
Oh, weird. Okay.
I looked at settings and stuff. I mean, I haven't done too much digging, but it's not immediately obvious.
Huh. Okay. Well, it purported to do it, but yeah, let me know how it goes, and maybe offline I can do some more investigation if need be. Okay. Well, so that's all neat, and we could do a little bit more TDD, but I think I want to take a break and talk about some other stuff. Oh, I guess one thing I could put in is a Travis badge, but whatever.
Oh, I think it's actually it is on that. Yeah, it's a little education.
Okay.
So I can't look at that.
How to document your projects. Okay. So now back to stuff that counts for your grade. So everybody pay attention. Okay. Now, a big part of software development is being able to explain what your software does. Explain it to your fellow developers, explain it to your end customer, explain it to other people that are using your software. And one of the ways you can communicate this is through documentation. And so then, especially as you're starting out in your career, I've found, and I think many of you have probably found too, that it helps to sometimes write things out, to draw the pictures, to figure out what you're going to do before you go off and do it. And so then there's a couple of mechanisms that I use in this class that encourage and force you to document what you're doing. So every project has something called a plan of attack, a POA. And a POA is simply a couple of paragraphs to describe what your project's going to do and how it's going to do it. And the idea here is that I'm kind of forcing you to think about your code and then write about your code, write about your project before it's due. This not only gets you practice at communicating things, it also means that it's really hard, makes it even harder for you to start the homework the night before. Okay. And so then 3 days before the project is due, so 72 hours, so that's Sunday night, before then, please send me at that email address an email that contains the letters POA in it, that contains your plan of attack. So again, 2 or 3 paragraphs, 2 to 4 paragraphs that describe how you're going to implement your project. I use an email filter for this because I grade them all later. And so then if you have something important to tell me about the class, don't include the letters POA in it. Any questions on the POA? Yeah.
Do you have any sort of, like how specific do you want us to get?
How specific? Well, I don't want to see code. I want you to tell the story of what you're going to do. So, instead of saying, I'm going to write an appointment book class that does this, or hey, here are the things that I'm going to validate in my main. For project 1, there's probably not a lot that you can talk about. But then how you get to project 4 or whatever, there will be more. So yeah, I mean, really, what's most important to me is that I see evidence that you thought about it and that you've communicated it. Yeah.
For the subject, do we put like project 1 POA or just POA?
It helps to have the project name. Does
Instead,
my automatic grading? Yeah. So it doesn't hurt. Probably makes it easier for me to talk to you. If I reply, it's like, yeah. Oh, and by the way, please just write the text in the email. Don't send me a PDF. Don't send me a doc file. No, I have to tell people this every term. Undoubtedly, somebody will. It might be you. Don't let it be you. So yes, just send me text. Just write it in an email. And unlike projects, there is no late days for the POA. This is something that you should be able to sit down and like a half an hour, read the assignment, sort of understand, start sectioning things out. And so then, if I don't get it, if you submit it after Sunday, you're not likely to get credit for it. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Now, but wait, there's more. So the Java programming language has something called JavaDoc, and these are special comments that precede program elements like classes and methods and fields that describe what those program elements, what that class is for, what that method is for. And we've seen some examples, like here in our student class. Right, this right here is a JavaDoc comment. You can tell because it starts with */*. And inside the JavaDoc comment are these special tags. You say like @param that describes the name param. And so the idea here is that in your code, you can write documentation about your code, about your API. And that's nice because then it keeps the API documentation right next to the code. And so when you change the code, you can update the API documentation, and tools will tell you like when things aren't consistent. So if you're going to write documentation for your code, it should be right in there with it. And you can learn more about it at that easy to remember URL. And I encourage you to do so because part of each assignment is to document the classes and methods that you that you write. I think I actually say up here. Yeah, you're required to have a Java comment for every class and method that you write. So what I do then is I have a program that extracts all those comments, and that will be part of your grade. I think it's like sort of like 1 point or a fraction of a point of your project grade will be based on the documentation. So please do that. Actually, it's a pretty easy way to make sure you get that credit on your project. I also encourage, but don't necessarily enforce, that you follow the standard Java coding conventions. I think it's a good way to. It basically like speaking. It helps you read other people's codes if you understand what the conventions are, and then other people can read your code if it follows conventions. So that's another thing I'd like you to check out. And finally, each project that's a command line project has a -readme option. And the -readme it should print a brief and concise description of what your project does. So it's not as in-depth as the POA. It's not so much about how it does it, it's more about what it does. And it's not just the command line usage. It should also include a little summary of like, okay, well, here's what you're doing. So in the case of the student, it'd be like, okay, creates a student. And then provide some information about it. And again, this will be one of the test cases that I run your programs through when I grade them. So POA, JavaDoc, and -readme. Those are 3 things that are required for. Those are 3 required things for documenting your code in this class. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Are we supposed to do documentation for our tests?
Documentation for the tests. No. As a matter of fact, the tests don't have to be submitted. I would like to be able to assess your ability to write tests, but I don't know how to do that. Is it like, do I say, oh, you must have some number of tests? Should you have some amount of code coverage provided by your tests? I haven't figured out what is fair and what's effective there. So it's like, you ought to write tests. You'll do better in the course if you write tests, but I don't force you to write tests. And your tests will not directly impact your grade. It will indirectly impact your grade because you'll be able to go faster. You'll be able to feel confident that you've covered all of the bases. If you have to go and change something, you'll have that nice safety net provided by your tests. But I don't require it of you because I don't know how to assess it. I don't know how to measure it. Good. Any other questions on how to document your code?
Yeah, for Java doc comments, sorry if this was already covered, but like how long should they be? Just like one quick little sentence?
I think that's most important. I guess just like any document or any communication, there's a bit of nuance there.
Because I've
So
seen like a lot of variation, like an entire paragraph to like a couple words, so just, does it
yeah, I mean, I
matter?
think
Or, like-
it's I honestly like when I grade or what I instruct the graders to do is like, is it sufficient? So like one sentence is probably enough. For the appointment book, you don't need to like Webster's dictionary defines an appointment as right. You're not writing an essay, okay? And you don't try to have like 3-inch margins or anything like that. No, oh my God, it's you need to. It's enough and sufficient so that someone could knows what your class is and knows how to work with it.
Okay.
It's still kind of vague. The README flag. How is that? Is that a parameter or how?
It's an option because it begins with dash, so it's an
Okay.
option to your program, which means it doesn't have to be there. And when your command line parser counters the dash README, it should print the README and exit, and that's it. So don't do any other command line validation. Do not create an appointment. Do not write to the file, nothing like that. Just print out the README and exit.
But if the README is hardcore coded into your program,
It is. Yep.
is it like an @README in the Java doc?
No, it's just a bunch of strings that you print out. Sorry, yeah. So please don't put your README in a file or anything like that. You won't be able to submit it. It's just hard coded in. It's kind of ugly and probably not the way you do in the real world, but for project one, it's
So when you
sufficient.
do that option, how does the program find it?
It's a string. They're in your program, right? You call the get me, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, kind of ugly, but
Sure.
that's okay. Nice, good. Any other questions about this stuff?
What's the print option for? In the project one.
It prints out the newly created appointment by invoking its
Oh, it
two-string
does.
method.
Just the new appointment though, not like the entire appointment book?
Well, in Project 1, there's the same, right? There's no way to create multiple appointments for your appointment book in Project 1.
Okay.
In Project 2, we'll see that changes.
Array list is one of the,
So,
maybe,
so if you invoke like your project one with just the arguments, it should just take them and not do anything with them. But if you give it the print option, then it should take them and then print back out.
Yep.
Oh,
Kind of dumb. Project 1, and we'll see Project 2 is much more superior using files now. So, but I'll cover that later in class.
Should we add typing information to use the Java doc? Like data types for parameters?
You don't need to. And I'll show you why. That's a great segue into what I wanted to cover next. So let's learn about JavaDoc. And so I want to show you what you can do with JavaDoc. So we've got your student. And here's your source code. Your student has has some JavaDoc associated with it. And if you run Maven JavaDoc, this will go analyze your code and from it create HTML documentation for your code. So now if you open target site API docs index.html, now we have this is the oops.
It's always the same.
It's always the same.
The
Say
target.
more.
The target API HTML, is that always how you open up the site?
That is where, yeah, okay, sorry, I'll explain what I did there. I ran, by saying this, I ran the JavaDoc goal of the JavaDoc plugin for Maven which goes through and runs the Java.doc program to generate all of this HTML, and it puts it, yes, in target site API docs. Yep, all by convention with Maven. Then I opened up that file, and here's what it looks like. I made it a little bit bigger so you can see it. So this is the class student. And here's student, and it talks about, here's its class hierarchy. So student extends from human, which extends from mammal, animal, et cetera, et cetera. I have this configured so that this links off to my Java doc in a different place that then lets you learn about its superclass. And as a matter of fact, I've got it configured so they can go visit Java Lang object, and this goes off to Oracle's documentation for Java. So this is how you learn all about the API, and I hope that you should be using these this Java documentation to learn about the API to understand what all these methods do.
Can you include that?
Question? What? What?
Can you include this in the repo? How'd you get here?
Oh, it's. I'm sorry. Can I? What in the repo?
Like, how'd you get here?
Yes. So what I did was I ran the Java.doc command, and then I used open, so it's on Mac. It'll like open up an HTML file, and so it brings it up in Chrome. But you can then go navigate to it, however. And as a matter of fact, this stuff that I should all mention in the Getting Started repo. Can you create an issue in that repo in GitHub saying, "Hey, you talked about all this like Java.doc stuff tonight, and what the hell? You didn't explain anything about it." So then I'll put some stuff in there over the weekend. And then the people next year will have to like, what the hell about something else that I forget to do? So anyway.
The superclass that you click human and went to your GitHub.
Yes.
Is that true for ours as well? When we click.
It can be, and I'll show you how to do it. Yeah. So, but back on student here, it gives me information about it. Like this class represents a student. Now, how did it know what that was? There's a Java.doc comment here that precedes my student declaration. That says this class represents a student. Similarly for the constructor, so then it generates this HTML. Oh, there's a constructor. It takes all of these things. Here's all of the type information. And when I click on it, here's the details about the constructor. And it describes the name parameter, the classes parameter. Well, all of this stuff right here is derived from the Java.doc in the source code. So again, the idea here is that by keeping your API documentation close to the API source code, you can run a tool like Java.doc that'll extract it all and make pretty documentation out of it. And by configuring things correctly, it can go off and find other APIs like ArrayList. So I just click on this, and it brings me off to Oracle's ArrayList documentation. And then yes, here is where they like to write lots of information about their code, which is good, right? I mean, this is an important class. The people at Oracle should be clear, or rather, the authors of the class should be clear. So, Maven provides support for building Java.doc, and that's really cool. Oops. There are all sorts of other reports that Maven supports, all sorts of other analyses of your code and things about your project. Remember, Maven is optimized for open source projects. And so if you're writing an open source library in Java, if you're Apache and you have a gazillion libraries out there, it's Apache Maven. What they wanted was a standard system that all of their open source Java projects could use that would provide a consistent experience, a consistent build experience, and a consistent tooling experience, and also a consistent way of generating a site for a project so that all Apache projects look approximately the same. And so you can generate that site by saying Maven site. Now, I've got this configured to go off and do all sorts of things. To generate information about the source code, to generate the API documentation, to generate information about the project. And remember at the beginning of class we were looking through the pom.xml and we saw things like the inception year and like who the developer was. Well, Maven site, the plugins that Maven site invokes, will consult all that information and create a whole bunch of documentation. And I need to talk slower or I need to talk more because it's still crunching away, because it's doing a lot of analysis. This is generating Java.doc right now, but it also it looks at the code itself. And it's got something called, it used to be called find bugs, it's called something else now. Spot bugs, I guess, that will look for smelly things in your code. So let's see here. I want to do Maven site stage. And what this does is it stages all the files together so it's easy to open. So target staging student index.html. So here is a file, a project all about, a site generated by Maven for all of this. And you can find out information like its dependencies. And so now here it says, well, this project depends on this this thing of mine. And actually, I guess that link is broken right now, but I could send you off to JUnit, send you off to Hamcrest, tell you about its licenses and things like that. And then all the transit dependencies too. Now this is important to know when you use a library, what other libraries are getting sucked in, right? Have you guys learned about software licenses, like some of the differences between them, and how there's software licenses that you want to use and software licenses that you want to stay away from? Because, okay, so now, people do work, people write software, and people license the software to put legal protection behind the software in terms of what you can do. And so the license determines how other people can use your software. And so some licenses are designed to let the software be used by anybody. Some are very generous in what you can do with it. Hey, you can go off and modify it. And sometimes like, we can go off and modify it, but you must attribute, you must say, hey, here's who originally authored it. You can't claim it as your own. Other licenses, though, are very restrictive. And some of them are, I would call them poisonous, because they say, hey, listen, well, if you're going to use my software in your software, I want my software to be open source. And if you want to use my software, well, your code needs to be open sourced also. So if you're a commercial entity that makes your money by controlling your IP, if you go and use that license, all of a sudden you have to make your code open source, or at least the lawyers will sue you into making your code open source. So it's really important as a professional software developer that you're aware of the licenses that your code is subject to. But in this day and age, it's so easy to suck in, dozens of, a couple dozen libraries, right? Just for the student, look at all the stuff that gets sucked in. Wow. That's a lot. And so then what this report tells you is like, hey, listen, here's all of the various licenses that you're using. Anyway. I could go on, but there's all sorts of good stuff here. So it's like, hey, here's a page that talks about how to find issues. And as an open source project, this is one of the things that as a user of it, you want to be able to find out easily. It tells you where you can get your source code. But then it's also got, team summary. Here's the, somewhere here I have, here you go, team. Right here, it generates this little table of all the people that contribute to it. And because I have my email address up on Gravatar, it knows it has a picture of me. But here's how you can find out more about it. This is all good stuff to know about your project, especially if it's an open source project. In addition to all the information on the project, you can configure Maven to run all of these different reports. And so like here is the Java doc, right? So it easily can go to that. We've seen that already. It has these, it's called a Surefire report, which summarizes all of your unit tests. So here's a report saying, hey, here's what your unit tests were. Something called Spot Bugs is pretty cool. This doesn't have very much right now, but as your code base grows, what this will do is it'll analyze your code base and it'll tell you things like, oh, hey, listen, you're doing something that is dangerous. You might get a null pointer exception here. Oh, hey, did you realize this code right here isn't thread safe, and so you might get race conditions? There are people that have written all of these analyses for Java source code that will help you find out these things. And because someone wrote a Maven plugin for it, and if you follow the Maven conventions, this stuff just sort of all works for you, and it's really nice. Something really cool that I like is this Jacoco plugin, which gives you code coverage. So what this does is when it runs your unit tests, it keeps track of how many lines of code and which lines of code were executed by those unit tests. And so this is telling me that here in my main method, my unit tests Actually, this is my entire student class, I guess. But my unit tests only covered this stuff in green. All of these things in red weren't executed by the unit tests. Now, unfortunately, this isn't getting the integration test, so I'm not getting everything. I don't know if I just don't have that configured right or what. But wow, this is like really valuable, right? So this tells you what, where your unit tests aren't providing you safety. And so then one of the things you can do is identify big chunks of your code where it's like, okay, I should write some tests there just so we know that that stuff is covered. Now, do you want 100% code coverage? Well, we can have a holy war about that. But this is a important thing to know. Anyway, and all of this stuff sort of comes out of the box with Maven. One other thing I wanted to show you, and one of the big motivations. Okay, so sorry. Now I want to go even further back in class when we talked about that parent pom.xml. So why do we need that parent pom.xml? Well, one was we needed it for Travis, right? Because when Travis builds all your projects, it's just going to build one Maven project. So you want to have the parent project. That's what Travis builds. And so as you add more projects to your repository, all those will get built also. But the parent pom also allows you to make a site for the entire for the parent project and all the sub projects. So I'll run that now. I hope. I have no idea what that means. No module descriptor. So anyway, so what it's going through and doing is it's like running the Java docs for all my source code, for all of my projects. And then what we'll see is that you get one big view across all of your projects. And this will probably take a couple minutes for it to go through, run all the analyses, do all the stuff that it needs to do. But for me, this is like one of the really powerful things that Maven does. I was talking with a couple people at office hours beforehand about how Maven manages all of your dependencies and all the artifacts for the dependencies for you, and that's very helpful. But I really like the fact that Maven, that I can leverage Maven and the conventions and the standards that Maven provides to run all of these analyses on my code, it seems to work okay. Maven site stage. And now I can run the this might work a little better. And now what I have is this documentation for my parent project that has a couple of sub-modules. But I can get things like the Java docs across all of my projects to include both appointment, project 1, and student. So anyway, this is sort of like the advanced part of advanced programming with Java. But the fact that Maven's very powerful, it can do stuff like this. One last thing I want to show you. So someone over here asked, "Hey, wait a second! Hey, it's so cool that you were able to put your that's not right. That you were able to put your the Java docs for the class up on publish it to GitHub. Can I do that?" And the answer is yes, and I will attempt to do so now. So Git has, and let me just show it to you here. Git has something called GitHub.io. And GitHub.io is reserved for publishing artifacts too. And every repository has something called GitHub Pages. The idea here is that for your repository, you want to publish not just the code from that repository, but maybe documentation about that repository or something like that. And then what you do is you can access those pages by through your username.github.io / the name of your repository. I have the GitHub pages for my Portland State Java repository configured to contain this documentation right here, and I think I can do the same here. Now the way you do it is a little wonky. You need to create a branch called GitHub. Is it page or pages? oops, not that one. Where is it? I guess I need to create it, open it up. Yeah, GH pages. Okay, so you create a branch called GH pages, and maybe I should have done that earlier, but let's see what happens. Okay. And then, okay, that's a branch of the repository. It has all the earlier revisions, which may or may not be a good thing. We'll find out. And then I've got things configured, so if you say Maven site deploy, it ought to basically take all of the pages of my site and commit them to GitHub in that GH pages branch. It takes a minute because it's uploading a bunch of stuff to, or actually pushing a bunch of stuff to GitHub. So it did that. Now here comes the moment of truth. Oh, actually, even says it gives me the URL to go to. So let's see if this works. So here, ta-da! I am so relieved. This is this is the site that I generated locally, and now I can publish it up there. And so now, if I was doing an open source project, now everybody could go to this. And I think, does that navigation work? No, it doesn't. That's all broken and messed up, isn't it? Yeah, someday I need to figure out how that works. But anyway, now I can get all sorts of information about my projects. And so then this is really like rounding out the life cycle of your Maven project. Now, are you going to do this for your code? Probably not, because here again, you don't publish stuff out there. But if you're working on another project, or if you're taking on your capstone and you're doing stuff with open source, these are things that are available to you. And all things considered, it's pretty straightforward, and it's standard, and it's conventional. So if you need help with it, you go reach out to the Maven community, and they'll be able to help you. You can go find out about this stuff on Stack Overflow. Because again, it's not homegrown. It's not something that you cobbled together. It's something that hundreds, if not thousands, of other Java developers have built over the years. And it's something I wanted to show you, and I think it's neat. So more stuff about documentation. Any questions about this stuff? Okay, time for another break. It's been another hour. Let's take another 10 minutes.